Hey guys, today we're going to talk about angles. There are a lot of angles, a lot of different kinds, so let's just get started on them. What we mean by angle in geometry is the union of two rays with a common endpoint. That's really the definition. We have to be precise about that. This is what it looks like. It just means that you've got two rays. Here's one and here's one, and they have a common endpoint. That's all it means. We've already talked about rays. That common endpoint we're going to call the vertex, and that's just a name for where those two rays come together. That's what makes it an angle. They don't come together at a vertex. It's not an angle. So an angle is made up of two rays. Then we've got the inside part, like, within there, so we call that interior of the angle. And then everything else except the angle itself is the exterior or outside. So that would be the exterior. So we have three sets of points when we talk about an angle, really. An angle's in a plane, it's flat. Divides that plane into three sets of points. It divides them into the points on the inside of the angle, the points that are actually on the angle, and the points that are all outside the angle. So just know those terminologies because you'll see them from time to time. If we want to name an angle, and we always do, so we can communicate clearly, there are several ways to do that. Here's one of them. I can name that vertex. I think I'll name it V. And then I can say that that's angle V. And that little symbol right there, it just saves you from having to write out the word angle every time. You can just put that little symbol for angle, so that's angle V. And if there are no other lines or segments or rays in the way or in that drawing, then you can just use the one letter. That's great. And sometimes you'll see that they'll put a little number in here, 2, or it doesn't matter what the number is, and they'll call it angle 2. So either one of those would be the same thing. It would be clear what you meant. Sometimes you'll see that there'll be a letter here on one ray and a letter on another ray, and it'll be necessary to use all three of them for clarity. That's the only reason. So if that's the case, then I could call this the same angle. I could call it angle ABC. Or I could call it angle CVA. And you see what's important is that that vertex angle is named in the middle. It is the common point for your two rays, and it needs to be in the middle. But you can go either way, angle ABC or angle CVA, and it doesn't matter. Notice that I used capital letters always, because those represent points. All right. Okay, next let's look at adjacent angles. Let's put an S on that too, because we're talking about two angles that are adjacent. If you think about who is adjacent to you, if you're in a classroom, or who's your adjacent neighbor, you mean who is like right next to you. So if we're talking about adjacent angles, that's what it means. So if we have an angle, let's say we have this angle right here made of two rays, and then I have another angle right beside it, has the same vertex. So adjacent angles share. I mean, they really do. They share. They share the same vertex, and they share a side. If they're right together, they share a side, and they share a vertex. So if I talk about angle 1 and angle 2, then I would say angle 1 and angle 2 are what we would call adjacent angles. So angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent. They're right next to each other. Okay, now if I say, this is a good way for us to look at notation just a little bit more. If I say angle 1, then hopefully you know that I mean that angle right there, just that angle. And if I say angle 2, then I mean this angle. Now I'm not saying they're the same size, I'm just trying to get names going here. Okay, but if I want to name this whole angle, the whole one, like the two adjacents together, I want to name the whole angle. I don't have anything to name it unless I have some letters on there, so let's put some. Let's call this let's just call it ABC. So we'll call an A there, call the vertex B, and we'll put a letter down here, capital C. Now, if I'm talking about the big angle, the big one, the whole thing, then I have two choices. I can call it angle ABC, put the B in the middle, put the vertex angle in the center, right here, or I can go CBA, just like we set up before. And then that's clear. Hopefully that's clear to you that that means the whole angle. Do you understand why I cannot on this one say angle B? I can't say angle B. And I know that you understand because I wouldn't know what I meant. I would know what I meant, but nobody else would. Because it's got extra clutter in here. When it has extra segments or lines or rays, you cannot use one letter. You can only use angle V, one letter, when it's clear as day, clear what that angle is. Okay? So watch your notation. All right, let's take a look at right angles. I bet you already know that a right angle has 90 degrees. Angles are measured in degrees, and by a right angle we mean two rays come together in a common endpoint, and they come together in such a way as to make like a square corner. When you first learn them in middle school or elementary, wherever you learned, you probably just called it a corner angle. And that just means that it's 90 degrees exactly. It's not 89 degrees, 88, it's not 91 degrees, smack dab on the dot of being 90 degrees. So we put the little corners, whenever you see that square written in an angle vertex like that, then that is a way of telling you that it's 90 degrees. So I mean, it could be upside down, it could be like this. And if that's there, then you know it's a 90-degree angle. And it may be in a figure. You may have a drawing over here later on that looks something like that. And you may have a little box. So anytime, you'll be able to look out for them too. Anytime you see this little box in a corner, then you know that's 90 degrees. And if there's not a box there and no one tells you it's 90, you're not given that, you can't say, well, yeah, it looks like it is to me. No, you can't do that. You can't assume it's 90 just because it looks like it is. So they got to tell you. It's got to be given. Given. Don't assume. All right, so that's a right angle. It has a measure of 90 degrees. So let's call this one, let's call this angle P right here. I'm just talking about this one. And it is marked with a corner, so I know it's a right angle. And a right angle, by definition, has 90 degrees. So the way I would write that is I would say the measure, notice that little m for measure, of angle P is equal to 90. If this was angle A right here, I would say the measure of angle A is equal to 90. And remember that measures are equal. So whenever I'm talking about a measure, I want to make sure I use equal marks. Okay, the next one we want to look at is an acute angle. And an acute angle is just a smaller angle. An acute angle, free up a little space here. An acute angle is an angle that has measure that is more than 0, but less than 90. It's a greater than 0 degrees, but it's less than 90 degrees. And if you're looking at an acute angle, it looks something like this one. Here's one right here. See how small it is? It doesn't open up wide enough to give you, a 90-degree angle. This is 90. Do it with me. This is 90. And you close it down a little bit. Now it's less than 90. It's not, and as it gets bigger, it's 90. There's our right angle. Smaller, acute. It can be just tiny as it could possibly be, the opening there. And if it's 0, then there's no angle. It has to be great, it has to be a little bigger than 0. And then as it opens up, anything before you hit 90 is called an acute angle. An acute angle is any angle with a measure of greater than 0 and less than 90. An obtuse angle is an angle that has a measure that is greater than 90 and less than 180 degrees. And before we go any further, I want to define a straight angle. But a straight angle has a measure of a straight angle is equal to 180 degrees. So let's talk about that. If I've got a 90-degree angle right here, and then I have another 90-degree angle right there, then that's 90 plus 90 would be 180 degrees, right? Okay? Now think of sliding these two together, and then what you would have is an angle. You would have 90 plus 90 would be 180, and that is what we call a straight angle. It's really called a straight angle because it is a straight line. It is a line. So every line has a measure of 180 degrees, and it's called a straight angle. So an obtuse angle is any angle that is greater than 90 but less than 180. So if 90 is here and less than 90 over in here, less than 90 is your acute angle, acute, 90 degrees, right angle. Now what's this? Bigger than 90, bigger than 90, bigger than 90, bigger than 90, obtuse, obtuse, all of that, obtuse until it flattens out completely. And then we're at a straight angle, 180 degrees. So get very comfortable with the meaning of all of those different kinds of angles so that when we use them in conversation, you'll be perfectly comfortable with them. Great day, go out and enjoy it, and I'll see you tomorrow.